Hey there future web developers, welcome to the first video of our HTML and CSS basics course. I am Sheikh Imran and in this series we are going to explore the world of web development, starting from very basics. First things first, let's talk about HTML, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Think of HTML as the skeleton of a website. It provides the structure and content like headings, paragraphs, and images. If a website were a human body, HTML would be the bones that give it a shape. Now moving to CSS or cascading style sheets. CSS is like a clothing and makeup. It adds style and design to the HTML structure. With CSS, we can change colors, fonts, spacing, and layout. It what makes website looks beautiful and user-friendly. The magic happens when HTML and CSS work together. HTML creates the foundation and CSS enhance the presentation. Imagine HTML as the ingredients of a recipe and CSS as the cooking instruction that make the dish look that is amazing. In this course, we won't just talk theory. We will get our hands dirty with hands-on coding sessions. You will see how to create different HTML elements, structure of a web page, and then style it using CSS. By the end of this course, you will be able to create your own websites from scratch. So get ready for this exciting journey into the world of web development. If you are ready to learn HTML and CSS, you are in the right place. And in this today's video, we are going to see what is web development exactly. So without wasting any time, let's begin this video. So what exactly is web development? Well, it's the art of creating website and web application. Imagine the internet as a big digital city and web developers are the architects and builders, constructing everything you see and interact with online. There are two main parts of web development, front-end and back-end. Front-end is all about what you see on a website, the layout, the buttons, the colors. On the other hand, backend is the behind the scenes, databases, server, configurations, and all the complicated stuff that makes a website work. Now let's talk about tools we use. For front end, we have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. HTML is like the skeleton, providing structure. CSS is the designer, and JavaScript is the magician, making things move and interact. In the web development, you write code using these languages. It might sound complicated, but don't worry. It's like learning a new language, and hey, I promise it's fun. When you start a web project, you begin with planning, deciding what your website will do and sketching it out. Then comes coding, where you bring your ideas to life with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. After that, you test your website, making sure everything works smoothly. And there you have it, a basic introduction to web development. In our upcoming videos, we will dive deeper into HTML, CSS. So today in this video, we are going to set up our development environment. Now let's see what is development environment. So development environment is we install some tools in our machine to execute or run our code. For this course, we need two things, a text editor and a web browser. So now let's first install our text editor Visual Studio Code. Although we can also write our code in simple notepad, but Visual Studio Code provides us lots of functionalities like auto suggestions, extensions, and many more. So to install Visual Studio Code, open your browser and search Visual Studio Code download. Now go to the first website. Now here select your operating system. I am using Windows, so I'll choose Windows. Now you can see it's getting download. After the completion of download, open it, accept this and click on next, then again next, and then click on install. Now click on finish. Here is the interface of Visual Studio Code. In the left side you will see some sections. Just go into extension section and search for live server. Make sure your internet is connected. Now install this extension. Okay, now our development environment is ready. We will learn more about Visual Studio Code throughout this course. Today we are going to create our first HTML page. So without wasting any time, let's get started. First, open your Visual Studio Code. Here I have to open a folder, so I opened a folder called source code. Now what I am writing here, you will find all the source code in the description. Let's create a new HTML file by clicking on new file option. And I am naming it index.html. Here HTML is the extension for HTML file like MP4 or MP3 media files. Visual Studio Code automatically recognizes the .html extension. Now let's start coding. Type HTML. This is the starting tag of our HTML document. It tells the computer that this is an HTML file and close this HTML tag. HTML file is a collection of tags. There are lots of tags in HTML and the HTML tag is main tag. All the code should be written inside this tag. Every HTML tag has an opening and closing tag. In some cases, this condition might be false. Next, add a head tag inside the HTML tag. This is the opening and this is the closing head tag. Inside this head tag, add a title tag and add some title here. After head tag, add a body tag. And what you have seen on a web page, all that written inside body tag. This is a very important tag. Inside our body, I am going to create a h1 tag, which is heading tag. And inside this heading, I am typing hello world. Now this is the basic syntax of HTML. Save this file. Now right click here and you will find an option of open with live server. If this option is not showing to you, go to extension section and install an extension called live server. We have installed this extension in our previous video. So after installing the extension, you will find this option here. Just click on this option. And now you can see here our HTML page is opened in our browser. So what we have typed in our body, that is showing here and the title is showing here. Congratulations for your very first HTML page. And if you want the source code, then please do check out in the description. In this today's video, we are going to see how to create headings and paragraphs in HTML. So without wasting any time, let's begin this video. You must have seen such a website which includes headings and paragraphs. In HTML, we create headings using heading tag. There are total 6 heading tags in HTML, and for paragraph there is a paragraph tag. Let's see them in Visual Studio Code. Here I am creating a new file heading and paragraphs. Now just type here doc and hit enter. This will automatically create a basic HTML syntax. Now in body, I will create first heading tag, which is h1 means heading 1. Just type h here and you will see this auto suggestion. We don't need to write all these tags from scratch. Hit enter. This is the first heading tag. Save this file. Okay, now let's open this page in live server. Right click here and you will find an option of open with live server. Click on this option. You can see the heading tag here. Let's quickly write remaining heading tags. Second tag is h2. then H3, H4 and H5, and the last one is H6. As I told you, there is 6 heading tags in HTML. Now let's get back to our browser. Here you can see all those tags. H1 tag is the bigger heading tag, and then remaining tags get smaller till H6. So we have created all 6 elements using 6 heading tags. Now let's see paragraph tag. Type P here and press enter. In paragraph tag, write lorem 50 and this will give us a random text. This is a feature of Visual Studio Code. Save this file. Okay, now let's see this in browser. You can see a paragraph here. Let's add one more paragraph. Now you can see there is total 2 paragraphs here. Now let's see one more tag, which is BR tag. BR tag is a line broker tag. If I want to break a line somewhere in paragraph, then I need to write this tag there. I am writing this tag here, and this is a self-closing tag, which means we don't need to write a closing tag here. Now let's move to browser. Here you can see that this line is broken from here and all the remaining stuff moved to new line. Today we are going to see what is text formatting in HTML. Don't worry, we are keeping it simple and fun. Let's get started. First, let's understand what is text formatting. If I want to make a word or some sentence bold or italic, then I can do this using text formatting. In HTML, we have some tags to do this. Let's see them one by one in Visual Studio Code. First, you have to do a setting here. Click on File option and turn on auto saving, so we don't need to save our page again and again. Now, I am going to create a new file called textformatting.html. Here, get a basic HTML syntax by typing doc. So first, we need some text to see text formatting. Let's create a paragraph here and add some random value using lorem 50. Now first, let's see strong tag. So I am writing strong tag here, and inside strong tag, adding some text. Now right click here and open this page in live server. You can see here our text is looking bold. It's because of strong tag. So strong tag make text bolder. Now next tag is for italic text. Let's add this tag inside our paragraph. Let's move back to browser. Here you can see the text is looking italic now. The next tag is small tag. Let's write this tag. And I add some text here. Okay, now in browser you can see the text is looking smaller here because of small tag. Let's see delete tag. If I want to show some text like cancelled or deleted, then I can use this tag. Let's quickly write this tag. And see here, this part is looking like this. Next is insert tag. This tag is used to underline text. Let's add this tag. And you can see here text is underlined. Our final tags are subscript and superscript. Look at this picture. If I want to add some text like this, then we can create this using superscript and subscript tag. First, let's see subscript tag. I am writing here the formula of water. And I will wrap these two inside subscript tag. Now let's see this in browser. Here you can see that the 2 is looking like this. Let's quickly write the last tag superscript. And now I am wrapping these 2 inside superscript. Let's back to browser. Here you can see subscript and superscript tags. We can also write this tag out of paragraph. We don't need to wrap this tag inside paragraph. Let's see them out of paragraph. I hope you understood this video. Today we are going to see how to create list and links in HTML. Believe me, it's super easy. So without wasting any time, let's begin this video. First, let's see what is list. Think of them as a neat way to organize your data. In HTML, we have UL for unordered list and OL for ordered list. In ordered list, it has some indexing. On the other side, unordered list only contains pointers. So let's see them in Visual Studio Code. Here in Visual Studio Code, I am creating a new file named listandlinks.html. Let's set up a basic HTML structure by typing doc and hit enter. Now in the body, I am using the OL tag for an ordered list. Inside this OL tag, I am using li means list item tag to add some data. Now let's add some more data. Duplicate this using Shift plus Alt plus down arrow. And we have got more items. Right click here and open this file in live server. You can see here our ordered list is displayed. But what if we want alphabetical indexing? In HTML, every tag has attributes. For the OL tag, type attribute is our friend. Set the value to A. Let's get back to browser and there you have it, alphabetical indexing. There is also some more attribute for OL tag. Explore yourself on Google. It's a task for you and comment them in the next video. Now let's dive into unordered list. Type UL here and hit enter. Now inside this, add some data using li tag. Let's see this in browser. You can see here, as I told you, UL tag is only contain pointers. We can also customize these pointers using CSS, something we will cover up in upcoming videos. Moving to links. Have you ever seen a website's navbar? When we click on this, it will redirect us to some different page. This thing is happening because of anchor tag. Anchor tag is used to create links in HTML. Let's see this in Visual Studio Code. Type A here and press enter. Inside this tag, add some text. Anchor tag has a very important attribute called href. Here, enter the link where we want to redirect. I am adding the link of google.com. Let's see this in browser. So when we click on this link, it will redirect us to google.com. Notice one thing here, it's redirecting us to google.com in same window. But I want to open a new window for google.com. To do this, we have an attribute. Let's add target attribute here. And set it to underscore blank. Get back to browser and I am again clicking on this link. Now you can see here google.com is opened in a new window. Okay, that's it for today's video. I hope you understood these tags, and if you want the source code, then please do check out in the description. Take a look at this picture. It's the YouTube homepage. Notice how every part is neatly separated. The navigation bar, sidebar and the video gallery. Beautiful, right? In HTML, we use a tag called div for division. It's a fundamental tag in web development. We also have the span tag. Let's explore them in Visual Studio Code. I've already set up the file for div and span. In the body, we have two paragraphs and their headings. Let's check them out in the browser. Right click and open this file in live server. You can see our paragraphs are listed as expected. Now, I want to separate these paragraphs into two sections using div tag. We need to wrap both paragraphs in divs. Here, type div and hit enter. Move the first section into first div. Now, create one more div for the second paragraph. and move it inside. Let's see this in browser. Although it might not seem like much has changed, our paragraphs are now in separate divisions. To confirm, let's change the background color of the divs. In HTML, we have a style attribute for styling elements. Let's add this attribute to our div tags. In CSS, the background color property changes the background color. Set it to red for the first div and green for the second div. We will learn more about styling in our upcoming videos. Back to the browser. And now you can see the two different divisions. Let's clear up any confusion between elements and tags. A tag is just opening and closing tag, but an element is the opening plus closing tag with its inner content called an element. Now let's move to the span tag. To understand the span tag, let's first grasp the concept of block level and inline level elements. Block level elements consume the entire available width like headings and divs, whereas inline elements only take the required width. The span tag is an inline element. Let's see this in Visual Studio Code. Creating a new heading, and after that adding a span tag. Let's add some colors to these tags to see it more clearly. Now get back to our browser. You can see the heading tag takes all the width, but the span tag only takes the required width. I hope you understood these tags. Imagine the internet without images, videos and audio. It sounds like sweet without sugar. These elements make a website more interactive, engaging and usable. In HTML, we have specific tags for handling images, videos and audio. Let's explore them in Visual Studio Code. Here I am creating a new file named imagesvideoaudio.html. Let's set up the basic HTML syntax by typing doc. Now in the body, I am creating a div for image. HTML has a tag called img to embed images on our page. It's a self-closing tag and doesn't require an end tag. Img tag has a very important attribute called src, means source, where we provide the path to the image. Let's grab an image from unsplash.com and select an image of your choice. Then right click on image and copy the image address. After that, add this image address to our source attribute. Here you are seeing one more attribute called alt. Alt attribute provides alternative information for an image if a user for some reason cannot view it. I am setting it to sky image. Now let's view this in the browser. Right click and open this page in live server. There you go. Our image is displayed. You can see the image size is very big. Let's decrease the image size. To adjust its size, we can use the width and height attributes. I am setting the width to 400 pixels. Back in the browser, the size is decreased. Now let's increase the height to 800 pixels. Remember, using both width and height may spoil the aspect ratio. Now let's move on to the video tag. The video tag is used to embed videos on our web page, just like YouTube or Instagram. Here I am creating a new div for the video. The video tag also has the src attribute. Now in my working folder, I have a sample video. Let's add this video here. In src, type the path of the video. Because I am in my working folder, here I am typing the name of my video file. Let's see this in the browser. You can see the video, but it's not playing. Let's add the autoplay attribute to make it play automatically when the page loads. And also add the controls attribute. It will give us the controls like play and pause, forward and backward. We can also use width and height tag here. I am setting the width to 600 pixels. Back in the browser, the video is playing and now we have controls. Now it's time for the audio tag. Audio tag is used to add audio to our website like Spotify or Ghana. Let's code it. Type audio here, and it also has the src attribute. For this source, I am setting it to a sample audio file named sample.mp3, which is available in my working folder, and add controls attribute to it. Get back to the browser. You can see the audio tag here. We have all the controls. Let's play it. There is much more to learn about multimedia. Explore on Google, it's a mini task for you. We will dive deeper into it in our upcoming videos. In this today's video, we are going to explore the concept of ID and classes in HTML. So without wasting any time, let's jump right in. Here I am creating a new file named id and classes.html. Let's set up the basic HTML syntax using the doc keyword. Now in the body, I am adding two headings, heading 1 and heading 2. So basically, ID and classes are two attributes. These attributes is used to target elements. To understand it, I have to write some simple CSS. Don't worry, we will learn more about CSS in our upcoming videos. Here, I am adding a tag called style inside head tag. Style tag is used to write CSS in our HTML page. Now in CSS, we start a class by typing dot, and after that, type the name of class. Here I am creating a class called headings. In the curly braces, there is a property called color. Color property is used to change the color of text. Here I am setting it to red. Now let's add this headings class to our heading 1 and heading 2. Add class attribute here and set it to headings. Same for heading 2. Let's view this in the browser. Right click here and open this page using live server. Here you can see the color of the headings is red. Now let's talk about the ID attribute. An ID is a unique identity of an element. We can't assign the same ID to many elements. Here I am adding the ID attribute to heading 1 and setting it to h1. Let's do the same for heading 2 and change the ID to h2. Now in CSS, to target elements by ID, we have to add hash first, then type the ID. Here I am typing h1, then inside the curly braces, I am setting the color to blue. Back in the browser, you can see the color of heading 1 is now blue. So, let's conclude this. We can use the same class for many elements, but we can't assign the same ID to many elements. If you're still confused about it, please watch this video again. If you want the source code, then please do check out in the description. Forms are the backbone of data gathering on the web, and today we are going to learn how to create a simple form in HTML. So let's dive in. I have set up a file named form.html for this video. In the body, we'll start by adding the form tag. This tag is the foundation for creating forms in HTML. Ignore this action attribute here, we will see it later. Now, let's add some input elements inside the form. Type input and hit enter. Input tag is a self-closing tag, and you can see the type of this element is text. It means this input box will accept textual data. Let's create one more input field for email, and this time set the type to email. Create the last input tag for password and set the type to password. At the end of this form, we need a button for submit. Let's create a button using button tag and set the type to submit. Inside this, type the name of button. Here I am setting it to submit. Okay, now right click here and open this page using live server. You can see here our form is displayed, but it looks so weird. Let's make it pretty. Here before input tag, I am adding a label tag. Inside this, I am writing name. This label tag is for the name input. This way users know what each field is for. Now let's set the value of for attribute to name and give the name ID to the name input tag. Also, there is an attribute called placeholder. This attribute is used to show users some hint inside the input box. Let's add this to our name input tag, and I am setting it to please enter your name. Now let's view this in the browser. You can see now our name field is looking good. Let's do the same for email and password field. Adding a label for email and setting its inner HTML to email. Also setting the ID to email. Add placeholder. Same for the password. Setting the inner HTML to password and the input ID to password. Add placeholder. Back to the browser, you can see here now our form is looking good, but all the fields are in one line. It's because input and label tags are inline elements. So to solve this problem, we have a tag called line break. We saw this tag in our 5th video of this course. It will place the input field in new line. Let's add this tag after our input tags. Type br here and hit enter. Do the same for remaining input tags. Back to the browser, now our form is looking pretty. I know we can improve it, we can add more colors, borders and many more stuff, but that is a part of CSS. We will see this when we start learning CSS. In our last video, we saw some form input tag, but there is more to explore about form. Let's get back to our Visual Studio Code. We have got our simple form from the last video. Now in this today's video, we will add some more important elements to it. You often have seen select fields like this. So in HTML, we have a tag called select. Let's add this tag inside our form. Type select and hit enter. Inside select tag, we need to add some options using option tag. For example, here I am adding HTML text inside option tag, and option tag has an attribute called value. Let's set the value attribute to HTML. So when the user selects this option and submit the form, then this value will be the output data value. Let's duplicate this here, and I am changing the inner HTML to CSS. Set the name. Here I am setting it to course. Now right click here and open this page in live server. You can see the select option here. It will give us a drop down of options. Now we can select an option, but what if I want to make a specific option by default selected and disabled? Like this, please select option from this picture. Let's add a new option. Please select. Add selected and disabled attribute here. Get back to browser. Now you can see the please select option is by default selected and disabled. Now let's see radio buttons. Look at this picture. These buttons are radio buttons. Let's create them in Visual Studio Code. Create a new input element and set the type to radio. Add value attribute and set it to yes. At the end of this tag, I am typing yes. So this radio button is for yes. Let's create one more for no. Set the value to no. And to place all these elements in new line, add br tag. Back to the browser, click on these radio buttons. You can see there is a problem. Both buttons are selected. So to solve this problem, we need to add a name attribute here and give it some name. I am typing confirmation. Add the same attribute with same name to next element. It will make them one field. Let's see this in the browser. Now you can see here only one button is getting selected. It's time for checkbox. Create a new input element and set the type to checkbox. At the end of this, I am typing I am not a robot. And to place all these elements in new line, add br tag. Get back to browser. Here is the checkbox. But here is the problem. When I click on this, I am not a robot text. The checkbox is not getting checked. I have to click on this checkbox, then it will get selected. To resolve this issue, we need to wrap this text inside a label. Set the value of for attribute to checkbox. And don't forget to set the ID of this input element to checkbox. Now you can see when I click on this text, it's working. Let's see how to get numerical data. Create a new input element and set the type to number. It will only accept numerical data. Add a placeholder. And I am also adding a label here. Set the for to number and set the ID of this element to number. Back to the browser, you can see here this field is only for numerical data. Okay, now what if a user want to upload some files like PDF, PNGs, images? Let's create one more input element and set the type to file. This field is only accept files from the device. Now suppose a user want to give a very long feedback, then this input field is not enough. In HTML, we have a tag called text area. It will help us to create a big input box. It has two main attributes, rows and calls. I am setting the rows to 10 and the calls to 5. This will define the size of text area. Adding a placeholder and setting it to type your message here. Get back to browser. Our text area is displaying here. And to place all these elements in new line, add BR tag. Let's move this submit button at the bottom of our form. Now I am going to submit this form without filling any information. You can see here it's submitting, but I want to make sure that all the fields are filled. User cannot submit the form without filling the details. So to do that, just add a required attribute to all fields. Let's test it again. Now it's not submitting. I think it's enough for today, but we are not done with forms. There is more to learn about forms. Explore yourself on Google. Tables are very important for data visualization. In this today's video, we are going to see how to create tables in HTML. So without wasting any time, let's get started. Here I am creating a new file named tables.html. Let's get a basic HTML syntax by typing doc keyword. Now in the body, to create a table, we have a tag called table. Let's add this tag. Now look at this picture. It has total 3 columns and 4 rows. So let's create this table in HTML. Here, the column names are the heading of the table. So to create the table heading, we have a tag called thead. Type thead and hit enter. Inside this, let's create our first row. To create a row, we have tr tag. Type tr and hit enter. Tr means table row. Inside this tag, let's add th tag and let's type the name of our first column. So the name of our first column is first name. Type first name here. Okay, now let's duplicate this. Press Shift, Alt and down arrow to duplicate. Type the name of second column, last name. Duplicate it again and here type the last column name H. Now let's see this in the browser. Right click here and open this page in live server. You can see here our table head is looking like this. Let's add some data here. So to add data in table, let's add tbody tag. Tbody means table body. Table body contains all the data of our table. Now let's create one more row using tr tag. Type tr and hit enter. Inside this, type td and hit enter. TD means table data. Now here type the data of first column. Here I am typing Imran. Duplicate it and add the last name. Then add the age. Okay, get back to browser. Now you can see here our table is looking like this. Let's add some more data. Duplicate this row and change the values. Let's see this in the browser. You can see here the table is created. I know it's not looking like a table. We need to add some border here, but that is the part of CSS. We will see about it when we start learning CSS. In our previous video, we created a simple table using table tag. Now in this today's video, we are going to explore more about tables. So without wasting any time, let's jump in. Look at this picture. It's a table of student details. You can see here it's little bit complex. In the city column, we have two cities, New York and Mexico. New York contains two students, John and Mike. And Mexico also contains two students. New York and Mexico cells are expanded by two rows. So let's create this table in Visual Studio Code. This is our previous code. We created this table in our previous video. Collapse this table tag. In the left side, you will find buttons to collapse. Click on this button and now our table tag is collapsed. Let's view this page in the browser. Right click here and open this page in live server. You can see here this table, but currently we don't require this table. We are going to create a new table. Now I am going to comment this table, get back to Visual Studio Code. Here, select this table and press Ctrl+/key to comment it. I know you're wondering what is comment. A comment is if we want to ignore something from our code, then we can use comment. Here this table tag is commented. It means we can't see this table tag in our HTML page. Let's confirm it. Yeah, you can see here we can't see our table. So in HTML, we create comment using these syntax. First, there is a sign of less than, then an exclamation mark, then two minus sign, and we will close this using two minus sign and one greater than sign. Okay, let's collapse it again. Click here. Now here I am going to create a new table tag. Yeah, inside this, create a T head for table heading, and here I am creating a new row using tr tag. Table row. Let's insert our first column. Add th tag here. We use th tag to insert data inside our table head. So here I am adding the name of our first column, that is student details. Okay, now this is our first row. Let's view this in the browser. It's looking like this. Let's create the second row. The second row contains three column names: city, student, and mark. Let's add these three columns. City, duplicated using Shift Alt plus down arrow. Student, and the last one is mark. Get back to browser. Yeah, we have created our three columns here. Now you can see here it's not looking good. We need to add some border. So in our table tag, let's add one attribute called border. Get back to browser. You can see here our border is now visible. But don't use this border attribute because it's not supported by all browser. I am using it here to just understand. We will add borders in our upcoming videos using CSS. In the picture, the student details heading is merged by all columns. To merge the cell, we have an attribute called call span. Let's add it here. Call span, and you can see here we have total 3 columns. So I am adding here 3. Get back to browser. See here our cell is merged. Now let's add the data inside tbody tag. As I told you, tbody tag contains all the data of our table. Here I am creating a new row using tr tag, and inside this let's add our first city. Add td tag here, and here I am typing New York. Let's add the name of our first student, John, and the last thing is 55. Get back to browser. You can see here we added our first student. Let's duplicate it and create one more row for Mike. Now this time we don't need this New York City. Remove it from here. Get back to browser. Yeah, it's looking like this, but I want this New York City cell expanded. So get back to New York and add attribute here, raw span. Let's add 2 here. Get back to browser. Yeah. You can see here the New York cell is expanded. Now let's duplicate this entire section. So I'm selecting it, duplicate it using Shift Alt plus down arrow and just change the values. City is Mexico. Name of the student is Alan. Get back to browser. Yeah, we created our table. It's exactly looking like this. Today in this video, we are going to see what are semantic tags in HTML. So without wasting any time, let's dive in. Semantic tags are nothing but a structured way of creating a web page. For example, if I want to create an article, then I can use the div tag and inside this, I will write my article. But if I want to create this using semantic tag, then instead of using div, I can use article tag. So basically, semantic tag tells us what value it contains and it will help search engines like Google to learn more about our website. So let's see this in Visual Studio Code. Here I am going to create a new file named semantic tags.html. Now let's get a basic HTML syntax by typing doc keyword. So in the body, I am going to create a new div and inside this, I am writing an article using paragraph tag. Type lorem 60 and it will give us some random text. Right click here and view this in the browser. You can see here our paragraph is visible. Now let's create this using semantic tag. So to create article, we have a semantic tag called article. Type article and hit enter. Inside this, type lorem 60. Now get back to browser. Yeah. You can see here nothing is happened. Both are looking same. But in the code you can see here it's more readable. We can easily find that this article tag will contain some article. But we can't say that this div tag is also containing article. Instead of this article, it will contain some images or something else. But in the article tag, we can say that this will only contain an article. Now we have some more semantic tags. Let's add header tag here. So type header and hit enter. Header is also a semantic tag. If we want to create a navbar, then we will create it inside header tag like this. Nav tag is also semantic tag. We have one more tag called footer. So, footer tag will contain footer of our website. This tag is telling us it will only contain the footer of our website. Now look at this article. You will find all the semantic tags here like article, aside, details and many more. I'll leave the link of this website in the description. Please do check out. Form and table tag is also semantic tag. And you can see here div and span is non-semantic elements. We all like emojis. We send them to our friends. So in this today's video, we are going to see how to add emojis and symbols in HTML. So without wasting any time, let's jump in. So here I am creating a new file named emojis.html. Let's get a basic HTML syntax by typing doc keyword. Now in the body, I am creating a heading and inside this, let's create a laughing emoji. So in the description, you will find the link of this website. Visit this website and you will find some emojis here. Just copy this code and paste it inside our heading. Right click here and open this page in live server. Here you can see our emoji is displayed. Let's add some more emojis. Copy, paste, copy and paste it again. Copy and paste it again. Get back to browser. Here you can see the emojis are displayed. Now let's see how to add symbols in our HTML page. Let's create one more heading here. In this website, you will find one option for HTML symbols and all symbols are listed here. Just copy the number code and paste it in our HTML page. Let's copy one more and paste it here. Get back to our page. Now you can see here the symbols are displayed. Congratulations, we are done with HTML. From this video, we are going to start learning CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. It's used to style HTML pages. So without wasting any time, let's get started. There is total 3 ways to apply CSS. Internal CSS, external CSS and inline CSS. Let's see them one by one in Visual Studio Code. So here I am going to create a new folder for CSS. I am naming it styling. Inside this folder, let's create an HTML page. I am naming it index.html. Get a basic HTML syntax by typing doc keyword. Now let's first see the inline CSS. Here I am creating a heading tag. Inside this, typing hello world. So to add inline CSS, there is an attribute called style. Let's add this attribute here, style. And in CSS, there is a property called color. Color property is used to change the text color. Here I am setting it to red. Right click here and open this page using live server. Here you can see the heading color is red. It's because of color property. Now let's see the second method, internal CSS. For internal CSS, there is a tag called style. Let's add style tag here and inside this tag, we can write the CSS. So now I want to change the color of H1 to blue. So here I am targeting H1 and inside this curly braces, setting the color to blue. Let's comment this H1 and I am creating a new H1. Okay, get back to browser. Here you can see the color is blue. Now let's see the last way of adding CSS is external CSS. So to add external CSS, we create a file called style.css and inside this file, we will write our CSS. Now here I am commenting this style tag and get back to browser. Here you can see the style is removed. Now let's reapply the style inside this CSS file. Type H1 and set the color to blue. Get back to browser, nothing is happened. We need to link this CSS file inside our head tag. So to link it, type link here and then you will find an option for link CSS. This suggestion is provided by Emmet abbreviation. It's a feature of Visual Studio Code. Now, here you can see the link tag and set the href attribute to the name of our file. Here it's already style.css. Get back to browser. Now you can see here the color of this heading is blue. I hope you understood this video. If you want the source code, then please do check out in the description. So we started CSS from our previous video. Now in this video, we are going to see what are CSS selectors, properties and values. So without wasting any time, let's jump in. So now let's create a new HTML file here, index.html. Get a basic HTML syntax by typing doc keyword. Here I am going to create a heading, hello world. Now here I am going to use internal CSS. So to do that, type style and hit enter. Inside style tag, we can write our CSS. We saw this in our previous video. There are 3 ways to add CSS in our HTML. So first, let's see what are CSS selectors. So we have 2 types of selector. One is class and the second one is ID. So let's see them both. First, here I am going to create a class. So to create a class, type dot and then type the name of our class. So here I am typing blue and inside curly braces add color property and I am setting its value to blue. Now look at here, this is the name of our class and inside this I added a property called color. So in CSS, we have lots of properties like background color, border, shadows and many more. Now let's apply this class to our heading element. To apply this class, add class attribute and inside double quote type the name of our class. Now we applied this class to the heading element. Let's view this in the browser. Right click here and open this page in live server. Okay, you can see here our heading is displayed and the color of the heading is blue. Let's add one more property called background color and set it to red. Get back to browser. See here the background color is changed to red. So this is class selector. We targeted this element by using class. Now we can also use ID attribute here. Let's add ID attribute to heading and I am setting it to heading. Now create one more heading here. Heading 2. Add class attribute and set it to blue. Now you can see both are looking same, but I want to change the color of this hello world to green. See here, I added the ID attribute to hello world heading. So let's target this heading ID. So to target an ID, type slash followed by ID name. So I am typing heading here. Inside this, let's change the color property to green. Now it will override this class. Get back to browser. Yeah, you can see here the color of hello world is changed to green. So in this today's video, we are going to see what are margin and padding. So without wasting any time, let's get started. Let's see them by visual representation. Here I created a box. Now, padding represents the amount of inner space an element has, while the margin is white space available surrounding an element. But why we need margin and padding? The answer is very simple. To add space between and inside our element. It is very important to understand for creating beautiful UIs. So let's see this in Visual Studio Code. We have created this file in our previous video. Let's view this in the browser. Right click here and open this page using live server. You can see here, by default our browser is adding some space here. To understand better, let's remove this space. So to remove the default space, type asterisk here and then inside curly braces, set the padding to 0. Also set the margin to 0. Now it will remove the default space which was added by our browser. Get back to browser. See here, the default space is removed. We have removed this space to understand margin and padding. Now, inside our blue class, let's add padding property and I'm setting it to 50 pixels. There are lots of CSS units like pixels, rem, em and many more, but we will see that in our upcoming videos. Currently we are using pixels here. Get back to browser. You can see here we have added padding to our headings. Now let's add margin. So to add margin property and I am setting its value to 40 pixels. Get back to browser. See here we have successfully added margin to our headings. Now let's add border to our heading. After margin, add border property. And now we need to give 3 values here. So the first value is the size of our border. So I am setting it to 5 pixel. Then add the border style. I am adding solid and the last thing is border color. So I am setting it to black. Get back to browser. Yeah, you can see here we have successfully applied borders to our headings. We can also change the border style. So let's change the border style. So I am changing it to dotted. See here our border is looking like this. Let's see one more style. Dashed. Get back to browser. Okay, we applied dashed border here. There are many border styles. Explore yourself on Google. And there is more to learn about borders. But I don't want to make this video complex. We will cover up it in our upcoming videos. Hands-on coding practice is very important while learning to code. So in this today's video, I'll give you a very simple exercise. So let's jump in. Take a look at this page. You need to create an article page like this. First add 2 divs, one for HTML and the second one for CSS. See here, in the first div, I added a heading and after that, one image, at the bottom, some random text. So it is looking like an article. I applied some border here. Also, add some margin and padding. Same for second article. But here you need to change the color of heading. See here, our first heading color is orange and the second heading color is blue. I hope you will complete this exercise. We will see its solution in our upcoming video. Fonts are very important to make our website looks beautiful. So in this today's video, we are going to learn about fonts and text styling. So without wasting any time, let's get started. Let's create a new HTML file. Fonts.html. Get a basic HTML syntax by typing log keyword. Now in the body, I am going to add a heading. Fonts styling. After that, let's add a paragraph and get some random text using lorem. Okay, now here I am going to use internal CSS. To write internal CSS, add a style tag, and inside this we can write our CSS. So first, let's target our H1. So here I am typing H1. First, let's view this in the browser. See here, it's looking like this. Now I want to change the font style of our heading. So to do that, get back to Visual Studio Code, and in CSS, we have a property called font family to change the font style. Add font family here, and you can see here we have lots of font style. So I am setting it to cursive. Get back to browser. You can see here the font style of our heading is changed. Now let's change the font style of our paragraph. So first, target paragraph tag, and then inside this curly braces, add font family property, and this time I am setting its value to fantasy. Get back to browser. The font of our paragraph is changed. Now focus here. These fonts are web safe fonts. What is web safe fonts? So web safe fonts means those fonts who already installed in our browser or our local machine. That is web safe fonts. But what if I want to import some other fonts? So to do that, we need to import fonts from the internet. So let's do that. So open your browser and go to Google Fonts. So you can find here lots of fonts. Choose a font of your choice. I am selecting this font. Click on it. And then select its size. So I am selecting this regular 400. Select. And then we need to copy this link tag. Copy it and paste it in our head tag. Perfect. Now we need to apply this font family to our element. Copy it, go back to Visual Studio Code, and now I want to apply this font family to our paragraph. So just paste it here, get back to browser. Yeah, now see here, we have successfully applied a fonts from Google Fonts. So this font is coming from Google Fonts. To confirm it, let's comment these link tags. Now see here, our font is removed. Undo this. Yeah, now you can see our applied font. Let's see some more font properties. Now let's change the font size of paragraph. To change the font size, add font size property, and I am setting its value to 30 pixels. Get back to browser. Yeah, see here, the font size is increased now. Let's see one more property, font weight, and I am setting its value to bold. So this property is used to make text bolder. You can see here, now our paragraph is looking bold. We can also change the font style using font style property. Let's add it, font style, and we have lots of font style. So I am setting it to italic. Get back to browser. Our paragraph font style is changed to italic. Now the heading size is looking very small. Let's increase it. Font size and setting its value to 50 pixel. Get back to browser. Yeah, now it's looking fine. So in this today's video, we are going to see the solution of our exercise 1. So without wasting any time, let's get started. So I hope you have completed this task. If you are not able to complete it, then no problem. In this video, I'll show you the solution. So in Visual Studio Code, I'm going to create a new file named exercise1 solution.html. Get a basic HTML syntax by typing doc keyword And inside our body, I'm creating two divs, one for our HTML article and the second one is for CSS. So in our first div, add a heading, what is HTML. Then after that, there is an image. Let's get an image for this from the internet. So I am searching HTML images and I found this one. Right click here and copy the image address. Get back to Visual Studio Code and paste it inside our source. Now after the image, create an paragraph and get some random text using lorem 60. Okay, now let's copy this and paste it in our second div, changing the HTML to CSS, and let's get an image for CSS. So CSS images, I'm adding this image, right click here and copy the image address, change the src of our CSS image. Now let's view this in the browser. Right click here and open this page using live server. So see here, this page is looking like this. Now let's write the CSS. So I am writing internal CSS here, add style tag, and inside this we can write our CSS. So first I am creating a new class called article, and inside curly braces let's add some border. So I'm adding border of 2 pixel, border style solid, and the color of the border is black. Let's add this class to our divs. Hold Alt key and then we can use multi-cursor functionality. Now add article class to our divs. Get back to browser. Yeah, see here we have added the borders. Now let's add some padding here. Add padding property and I am setting its value to 30 pixels. Get back to browser. See here, we have added some padding here. Now focus here. We can also give 4 values to our padding. The first value is for top padding, second value is for right side, then the third value is for bottom, and the last value is for left side. So we can also define 4 different sizes to our 4 sides. So this is top, then right, bottom, and then left. Let's see this. Yeah, now if I want to increase the value of bottom to 80 pixel, so just change the third value to 80 pixel, and now see here the size of bottom padding is increased. So I hope you understood this. Now let's add some margin here. So I'm adding margin property and setting its value to 50 pixel. Okay, now it's looking similar to this page. But the last thing is here, we need to change the color of these headings. So the first heading color is orange and the second heading color is blue. So let's change it. I'm adding an ID attribute to our first heading and naming it HTML heading. Okay, also adding the ID to second heading and setting it to CSS heading. Now let's target these. So first type hash followed by ID name, HTML heading, and then I want to change the color of HTML heading to orange. Now let's duplicate it. Press Shift Alt plus down arrow to duplicate it, changing the ID to CSS, and I am changing it to blue. Now get back to browser. Yeah, so see here, we have successfully completed our exercise. And one more thing, we can also define the 4 different sizes of margins, like our padding. So I hope you understood this solution. If you want the source code, then please do check out in the description. Colors are very important in web development. They make a website look beautiful, engaging, and user-friendly. So in this today's video, we are going to play with colors in CSS. So without wasting any time, let's jump in. Now, I am going to create a new HTML file for colors. Colors.html. Get a basic HTML syntax using doc keyword. In the body, let's create some element to apply colors. So I am creating a heading. I am as coding. Let's create one more element. Paragraph. Get some random text using lorem. And here type how many words you want. So I am typing here 60. Perfect. Now here I am going to use internal CSS. Add a style tag. And inside this we can write our CSS. Let's create a class. I'm naming it color, and inside curly braces set the value of color to red. Okay. Now let's apply this to our heading and paragraph. Add class attribute and I am setting its value to color. Same for paragraph element, class color. Let's view this in the browser. See here, we have successfully applied red color to our elements. Now let's see some other ways to add colors. We can also get the color by using RGB. So let's comment this property. In CSS, to comment something, type slash and then asterisk, and to close the comment, asterisk followed by slash. So we have commented our color property. Let's set the color again, and this time we are going to use RGB method. So type RGB. Now this is like a function, so it will take three values: red, green and blue. We need to provide here some values in numbers. So I am setting all to 0. So currently we haven't applied any color. Let's change this to 250, and now the color is changed to green. So we have also a color picker in Visual Studio Code. You can get the values of RGB from here. You just need to adjust from here. It's a UI based color picker. So this was the second method of getting color. Now let's see the last method. Let's comment it again. Okay, so comment means our browser will ignore these properties. Now let's add color property again. And this time we are going to use the hex color method. So what is hex color method? We can give here some hex code. FFX. Now see here, Visual Studio Code also providing hex color picker here. Over here, and you can see the hex color picker. Choose the color of your choice and then it will give us the hex color code. Now there is also a website to pick the hex color. So I'm going to Google and typing here hex color picker. Yeah, so here you will find hex color code. Choose the color and then copy this hex color code and paste it here. Yeah, the color is successfully applied, but in web development, we rarely use this hex color code method. In most of cases, you will use these two methods. Now let's apply background color. So I'm adding background color property and setting its value to purple. Yeah, background color is visible, but our heading color is looking weird. So let's change it. So I am changing it to green. Okay, so I hope you understood these three ways to pick colors. We are going to play with colors in our upcoming videos. We will more focus on project-based learning. Buttons play a very important role in a website. So in this today's video, we are going to see how to style a button. So without wasting any time, let's jump in. Now here I am creating a new file named button style.html. Get a basic HTML syntax using doc keyword, and inside our body, let's create a button using button tag. I am setting the inner HTML to click me. Now here I am using internal CSS. So to use internal CSS, let's add style tag, and inside this we can write our CSS. So first, let's view this in the browser. Right click here and open this page using live server. Okay, now go to this icon and then add the browser and Visual Studio Code side by side. It is very helpful while developing. We can see the changes while writing code. So let's target our button. Then first let's increase the font size. So I'm setting the font size to 20 pixel. Let's increase a bit more, 25 pixel, and then adding some padding of around 5 pixel vertically and 10 pixel horizontally. Okay, let's make it bold using font weight. So font weight, and I am setting it to bold. Perfect. Now let's add some border. So I am adding the border of 5 pixel solid aqua. Now I want to make this border rounded. So we have a property called border radius, setting its value to 10 pixel. Yeah, so our border is rounded. Now when we hover on it, I want to change the background color to black and the text color to white. So to do that, let's type button here, and then after colon, type hover. Then inside curly braces, add background color, and I am setting its value to black and the color to white. Now what this code will do, when someone hover on our button, it will change the background color to black and set the text color to white. So let's see it. Yeah, you can see here it's working. So this is a very basic video about how to style a button.
In our HTML, we saw there is two types of elements. One is inline level elements and the second one is block level elements. And in that video, I have told you we can change the level of elements using CSS. So in this today's video, we are going to see display property. Display property will help us to change the level of an element. We can make an inline element to block level and block level element to inline. There is also more to explore about display property. So without wasting any time, let's jump in. So here in Visual Studio Code, I am going to create a new file named display property.html. Get a basic HTML syntax by typing doc keyword, and in the body, let's create a div. And inside this, I'm writing I am a box. Now let's write some CSS. So I am using internal CSS. First add style tag, and inside this we can write our CSS. Let's create a new class called box and add border property. I'm setting its value to 3 pixel solid green. Remove the default margin and padding, type asterisk, and then set the margin to 0 as well as padding to 0. Let's view this in the browser. Right click here and open this page using live server. Okay, let's apply our box class to the div. So add class attribute and set it to box. See here, we have successfully applied our box class to the div. We all know that div is a block level element. So let's make it inline element. In CSS, we have a property called display. I'm setting its value to inline. You can see here our div is consuming only required width. We can also make an element block level. So let's create a span tag, and I'm setting its inner HTML to I am span. Let's create one more. I am span 2, and we know that span is an inline element. So let's view this. So see here, by default span is an inline element. So let's create a new class box2 and let's add border of 3 pixel solid blue, and I am setting the display property to block. applied on our span class box2. So see here, our span is now block level element. Let's do the same for second span box2. Okay, so both span is now block level element. Now what if I want to hide an element? So let's hide this I'm span. I'm creating a new class called hide and setting the display to none. Let's apply one more class to our first span, hide. So to understand better, hover here and set the browser and Visual Studio Code to side by side. Let's comment it. Yeah, let's apply it again. So our first span is hidden. We have one more property called visibility, and this property will hide our element but it won't remove it. You can see here the space of our span is still available. So this property will only hide the element, but the display property will also remove the space including the element.
Today we are diving deep into CSS Flexbox, an amazing layout model that can make your web design easier.
So without wasting any time, let's jump in.
First, let's understand what is Flexbox. Well, it's a layout model that allows you to design complex layouts more efficiently. But before we jump into the magic of Flexbox, let's set up our playground. Imagine we have a bunch of elements, a container and its children. We want to arrange them, and this is where Flexbox steps in. So here I am going to create a new file named flexbox.html. Get a basic HTML syntax by typing doc keyword. Now inside the body, let's create a div. So this is our parent div. Now inside it, I am creating some child div. So I want 3 divs. So type div here, then type asterisk symbol, and then how many divs you want. So I want 3 divs. So I am typing 3 here and then hit enter. So it will give us 3 divs. It's a feature of Visual Studio Code. Now let's write some simple CSS. So I am using internal CSS. First add style tag, and inside it we can write our CSS. Here I am creating a new class called container. This class is for our parent div, and I am setting the background to aqua. Then setting the width to 100 VW and the height to 100 VH. Now we will learn more about CSS units in our upcoming video. So let's create one more class for our child divs. Creating a class called child, and then inside it setting the background color to green, setting the width to 200 pixel, also height 200 pixels. Let's add some border here. So I'm adding a border of 3 pixel, solid black. Now let's view this in the browser. Right click here and open this page using live server. Okay, now let's apply classes to our elements. So I'm applying container class to our parent div, and then hold Alt key to use multiple cursor, and then add class attribute, then applying child class. Go back to browser. Okay, now you can see here we have successfully applied our classes. Let's remove this default padding and margin. So type asterisk symbol, and then inside this set the margin to 0 as well as padding to 0. Okay, now you can see here we have removed the default space. So we have our container and inside it we have our child elements. By default, these divs are behave like block elements. But what if we want them to play nice and flexible with each other? So here comes flexbox. So I am adding display property to container class and setting its value to flex. So by applying display flex to our container, we activate the flexbox magic. It transforms our container into a flex container. Get back to browser. Look at that. Our child elements are now in a row. Flexbox makes them line up horizontally, but that's just a beginning. We can do so much more. Let's see more about it. So now I am adding flex direction property. With the flex direction property, we can control the direction of our flex container, whether it's raw, column, raw reverse or column reverse. Flexbox gives us the flexibility to arrange our elements the way we want. Let's see this. So I'm setting the flex direction to column. See here, our divs arranged like a column. By default, the flex direction is raw. We can also set it to raw. Now let's see raw reverse and column reverse. So inside our divs, I am setting the inner HTML to 1, 2 and 3. Let's view this. So let's style them. Text align, I am setting it center, and the font size, let's increase it. Increasing it by 30 pixel, and then our text, and then let's set the color to white. Okay, so see here, this is our first div, then second, then third. Now let's see raw reverse. So raw reverse will reverse our divs. Now let's see column reverse. So I'm setting it to column reverse. Yeah, it will reverse our column. And just like that, we have changed the direction of our elements. Flexbox is all about giving us the power to control the flow of our content. But what about our individual elements? This is where flex items come into play. Each child inside our flex container becomes a flex item, and we can apply properties like flex grow, flex shrink and flex basis to control their behavior. So now let's see flex basis. So here I am giving an ID to our first div, child 1, and then targeting the child 1 ID and adding flex basis property here and setting its value to 200 pixels. Get back to browser. Now see here, the width of our first div is 200 pixels. It's like giving our element a space to begin with. Now let's talk about flex grow. So let's comment it. And just after flex basis, I am adding flex grow and I am setting its value to 1. So setting flex grow 1 means our element can take up available space. It's all about sharing of extra space. Now let's see flex shrink. So I am commenting it, and now let's add flex shrink property and I am setting its value to 2. Get back to browser. Now inspect here. Now see here, when I am shrinking it, so our first div is shrinking more. It's because of flex shrink property. Now our elements are not just sitting there, they are growing, shrinking and bending to our will. One of the coolest things about Flexbox is its ability to handle responsive design effortlessly. So in this today's video, we are going to understand what are CSS units. So without wasting any time, let's dive in. So in our daily life, we use units like kilometer, meters, centimeters and inches. So similarly, in CSS, we have units like pixels, rem, em, viewports and many more. Let's explore them one by one. So first, I am starting with pixels. We know that our screen is made of pixels. When we set something to 10 pixels, it means we are giving it a size equivalent to 10 pixels on your screen. Simple, right? Let's see this in Visual Studio Code. So here I am going to create a new file named cssunits.html. Now get a basic HTML syntax by typing a doc keyword, and inside our body I'm going to create a new heading called Hello World. So here I am using internal CSS. So first add a style tag, and inside it we can write our CSS. So I am targeting this heading 1 and inside curly braces. First let's view this in the browser. Right click here and open this page using live server. Now see here our heading is displayed. So go over here and make the browser and Visual Studio Code side by side, so it will help us to see the changes. Now here first I am changing the heading color to blue. Okay, so I'm adding a property called font size and I'm setting its value to 40 pixels. Let's increase it more. I am setting its size to 100 pixels. Perfect. So this is how we use pixels. Now let's talk about relative units. So we have rem and em. These units bring a sense of flexibility to our designs. Rem stands for root em and it's relative to the font size of the root element. Meanwhile, em is relative to its parent's font size. It's like passing down size trace through the family tree. So let's see a practical demo of this. Now here I'm going to wrap this heading inside a div and let's target this div and I'm setting its font size to 10 pixel. And I'm changing the font size of our heading to 1 em. Okay, so see here, now the font size of our heading is very small. It's because we have set the font size of our div is 10 pixels. So this heading is dependent on this div. So if I change the value to 100 pixels, see here, now it's displaying the heading larger. So this 1 em means 100 pixels, because it's dependent on its parent div. Now let's see rem. So I am changing this em to 1 rem. So this time this 1 rem means 16 pixels. So by default 1 rem equals to 16 pixels, and if we want to change it, then we can give it em and then define the size in pixels to our parent div. So I hope you understood it. Now the next in the list is viewport units. Viewports are denoted as VW and VH. These units scale based on the viewport size. VW is a percentage of the viewport width, while VH is a percentage of the viewport height. So viewport means the size of our entire screen, whether it's vertical or horizontal. So let's see an example of it. So here I am giving a background color to this div, red, and first let's remove the default margin and padding, type asterisk. Then inside curly braces I am setting the margin to 0, also padding to 0. So here I am adding the height of 100 VH to our div. So now see here, it acquires the entire height of our screen. And also let's give him a width of 100 VW. Okay, so it acquired the entire size of our width and height. If I set the width to 50 VW, now see here, it acquired the width of our half screen. So this is how VW and VH work. Now it's time to see the percentage. When we use percentage in CSS, we are telling our elements to take a portion of their parent container. It's like slicing the cake and everyone gets their fair share. So let's see this with an example. So I'm giving a background color to our heading, green, and after that I'm adding height property. And here I am providing a value in percentage. So here I am setting 50%. So it means our heading will acquire 50% height of its parent. If I change it to 80%, then see here it's expanded more. Now let's set it to 100%. So it acquired the 100% height of its parent. Navigation bar is a very useful component of a website. It makes a website user-friendly and also enhance the overall design of a website. So in this today's video, we are going to see how to create a navigation bar, in short, nav bar. So without wasting any time, let's get started. So here in Visual Studio Code, I am going to create a new file called navbar.html. Get basic HTML syntax using doc keyword. Now in the body, add header tag, and inside this, add a nav tag. Now we will create our nav bar in this tag. So first, let's create a div for logo. So see here, navbar contains some elements like first the logo, then some navigation links, and in the right side you will see some buttons like login, logout. So let's create a navbar like this. So in the first div, I'm adding an h1 and creating a logo called IMS coding. Then create another div, and this div will contain our navigation links. So let's create navigation links using anchor tag, type A and hit enter. Now a website contains navigation links like home, about, contact, feedback. So all these links are an example. Let's create our last div. And in this video, I am going to create two buttons. One is for login and the second one is for sign up. Okay, now let's view this in the browser. Right click here and open this page using live server. You can see here our page is displayed, but currently it's not looking like a nav bar. So we need to style it using CSS. Get back to Visual Studio Code. And here I am using internal CSS. So add a style tag, and inside this we can write our CSS. So first let's target our nav. So nav tag, and inside curly braces I'm setting its width to 100 VW. Let's add a background color, light blue. After that add display property and set it to flex. Let's view this. Yeah, now let's place this browser and Visual Studio Code side by side. Hover your mouse here and you will see these options. Set it to left and set the window of Visual Studio Code to right. So see here, so by default our browser is adding some margin here. We don't want this margin. Type asterisk symbol and inside curly braces set the margin to 0 as well as padding to 0. Okay. Let's add some padding to our nav bar. I'm adding padding of 10 pixel. Let's increase it a bit more, 15 pixel. Yeah, so I think it's perfect. Let's add justify content, and I want some space between these three sections. So let's add space between here. Okay, align them vertically center. So align items, center. Okay, now let's style our anchor tags. Target anchor tag. At first, set the text decoration to none. Then add margin of around 10 pixel. Increase the font size to 20 pixel. And now let's change the color. So color to white. Let's change the color to black. Okay. Now it's time to style buttons. So target button, and then inside curly braces I'm adding some padding of around 8 pixel vertically and 15 pixel horizontally. Okay, let's increase the font size to 18 pixel. Add font weight property and set it to bold. Let's make the border rounded. So I'm adding border radius of 10 pixel. And then let's add some background color. So background color, and I am setting it to antique white. Okay, now I don't want this border, so let's remove it. Add border property and set it to none. Okay, let's add some margin So I'm setting the vertical margin to 0 and then the horizontal margin to 8 pixel. Perfect. Now let's increase the font size of our logo. So let's target H1 and I'm setting the font size to 30 pixel. Also, let's change the font family. So font family, I'm setting it to this. Okay. So we have successfully created this nav bar. If you want to make some changes, then do it. If you want the source code, then please do check out in the description. So in this today's video, we are going to see alignments in Flexbox. So without wasting any time, let's get started. I've got a page set up here named aligning items flexbox.html. Let's view this in the browser. Right click here and open this page using live server. Now see here, I have created 4 divs here and all divs are inside our main container. So in Visual Studio Code, first let's make this container a flex container. So I'm adding display property and setting its value flex. Now this container is a flex container. Just after display flex, here I'm typing a property called justify content. And I'm setting its value to flex start. This is like lining up our elements at the starting line. Everything will goes to the left edge of the container. Get back to browser. So you can see here, by default, justify content is set to flex start. That's why nothing is changed here. Now let's see flex end. So I'm setting justify content to flex end. And now see here, everything is aligned at the right side of the container. So this is because of flex end. Now if we want to center them, so we can set it to center. And this time our divs are centered. Now if we want to add some space between these elements, so we can set it to space between. See here, Flexbox evenly distributes the space between our elements. Now let's see space around. So I'm setting it to space around and space around will add space to the start and end. And suppose if this space is 20 pixel, then space around will add 10 pixel here and 10 pixel at the end. Now if I want to give equal space to every element, so we have space evenly. Get back to browser. So now see here, the space between our elements is now equal. Okay, so justify content is aligning our elements in horizontal. Now let's see align items. So I'm adding align items property and setting its value to center. Okay, so this will align our elements vertically. I can also give him flex start and flex end. It's work same as justify content. Just remember one thing, if you have changed the flex direction to column, then use justify content for vertical alignments and align items for horizontal alignment. Because we are rotating the div, that's why we need to use justify content for vertical alignments and align items for horizontal alignments. See this box, it has some border. Now let's add some outline to this box. Okay, now focus here. This is the border and this is the outline. Both are different. So in this today's video, we are going to see how to add this outline just after border. So without wasting any time, let's get started. So here in Visual Studio Code, I am going to create a new file named outline in css.html. Get a basic HTML syntax by typing doc keyword. Now inside our body, let's create a new div. And I am adding a class called box. Okay, now let's view this in the browser. Right click here and open this page using live server. Now place this browser and Visual Studio Code side by side. Hover here and click here. I am setting the browser to left side and Visual Studio Code to right side. Okay, now it's time to write some CSS. So here I am using internal CSS. Add style tag. Now here we can write our CSS. Let's target this box class. Type dot box. Now inside curly braces, I am adding with property and setting its value to 10 rem. Same for height property, 10 rem. Now let's add some border of around 10 pixel. So border 10 pixel, solid blue. Okay, you can see the border here. Now just after border property, add outline style property and set it to solid. Now in the browser, you will notice that there is an outline just after border. So this is because of outline style property, but it's looking very thin. So let's increase the width of outline, add outline with property, and I am setting it to 20 pixel. We can also change the color of outline with the help of outline color property. Add outline color property, and I am setting it to yellow. Perfect. Now let's see the last property of outline offset. So I am setting it to 10 pixel. See here, outline offset property adds space between an outline and the border. To see it more clearly, let's change the color of our body. So I am changing the background color to black. So see here, this is the space which is added by outline offset property. Okay, so these are the properties of outline. But do we need to add these properties separately? Obviously no. We can add all these values in a single property called outline. So let's comment all of the above properties like this. Now let's add a single property called outline and then setting the color to yellow. Now this time I am setting the outline style to dotted. There is lots of outline style. Explore yourself on Google, or I will give you a link in the description. Check that. And the last thing is outline width of 10 pixel. I know we haven't added outline offset because we cannot set outline offset property here. We need to add it separately. So let's uncomment outline offset. So I am removing the comment from here and pasting it here. Okay, now you can see the space between our border and the outline.
So in this today's video, we are going to see position property in CSS. So without wasting any time, let's get started. First, let's understand why we need position property. So see this page. When I scroll down, the navbar is being invisible. To tackle this issue, we can make it fixed using position property. And this is just only one example of position property. Think of it as your web design toolbox. It helps you place elements exactly where you want them on your page. Simple, right? Now let's see this in Visual Studio Code. So here, I am going to create a new file named position property.html. Get a basic HTML syntax by typing doc keyword. Now inside our body, let's create a container. And inside this, I am going to create two child divs. So divs dot child multiplied by 2 and then hit enter. It's a shortcut provided by Visual Studio Code. Okay, it's time to write CSS. So I am using internal CSS. So to write internal CSS, we need to add style tag. I'm adding style tag after a head tag, and inside it we can write our CSS. First, let's target this container class. So type container and inside curly braces, let's set the width of this container to 100 VW. Then height, I am setting it to
200 VH. Now let's make it flex. We want these two child divs in center. So add justify content to center. Same for align items. Center. And let's give him a background color of green. Now let's view this in the browser. Right click here and open this page using live server. Okay, you can see here. Now let's remove this. Now let's remove this space which is added by our browser. So type asterisk symbol, then padding set it to 0 and margin set it to 0. We don't want the default space. Okay, perfect. Now over here and make the browser and Visual Studio Code side by side so we can see the changes while writing the code. Now let's target our child class and then I'm setting the width of 10 rem. Same for height 10 rem. Let's give him a border of around 2 pixels. Solid black. Okay, now you can see the child divs. Let's add some margin of 2 rem. Okay, let's increase the border a bit more. Perfect. Now I am giving child1 ID to our first div, child1, and let's target this ID. So after hash child1 and then inside curly braces add position property and set it to static. Now see in the browser nothing is changed because by default every element is static. So static is the default property of every element and it makes an element static. Now let's see relative property. So I am commenting the above position property and then close this comment. Okay, then position relative. So the shortcut for duplicate a line is Shift Alt plus down arrow. Now we can change the position of this element using top, bottom, left, right property. Let's see that, but first let's change the background color of our child1 to white. Okay, so we can easily identify the child1 div. So here I am adding top property and setting it to 100 pixels. Okay, now see here, the position of our child1 is changed. So what happened here? So it moved down the length from here to this div. It is exactly 100 pixels. We can also use left property and I am setting it 50 pixels. Okay, so like these properties we can also use bottom and right. Now let's see position fixed. So first comment this above position property and then set the position property to fixed. Okay, leave the top and left same. So see here when I am scrolling, our first child div is not changing his position. It's because of position fixed. Now let's see position absolute. So first duplicate it, press Shift Alt plus down arrow and then commenting the above position property. Okay, now let's set the position property to absolute. So position absolute property change its position relative to its parent. In our case, the parent of child1 is the container. So we need to set the position of the container to relative. So let's set the position of our container to relative and the position of our child1 is absolute. So nothing is changed, but if I reduce the width to 20 pixels, okay, and if I change the top of our child1 to 10% and also left to 50%, so you will notice that it's adjusting his top and left position in relative to its parent, which is the container. If I remove the position from parent, then you'll notice that the parent of our child 1 is the body tag. So we need to specify position relative in our parent div to work with position absolute for our child element. In this today's video, I want to give you a very simple exercise. So without wasting any time, let's get started. See this login form. You need to create a login form like this. Try this exercise and I promise you will really enjoy it. First, create a container and then inside it create one more div for login form. After that, create this heading, then add this label, and just after label, add an input box, same for password, and then the last thing is the login button. So it's very simple. I know you can do this. In our upcoming video, we will see the solution of this exercise. So in our previous video, I had given you an exercise to create a login form like this. So in this today's video, we are going to see the solution of this exercise. So without wasting any time, let's get started. First here, I'm going to create a new HTML file named loginform.html. Now, get a basic HTML syntax by typing a doc keyword. Now inside body, let's create a div and I'm setting the class to container. Okay, now let's write CSS. So here I am using internal CSS. For that, we need to add a style tag. So I'm adding style tag after head tag. And inside it, we can write our CSS. So let's target our container class, type dot container, and I'm setting the background color to black. Then let's set the width to 100 VW, also height to 100 VH. Now we don't need the default padding and margin, so to remove it, first type asterisk symbol, then set the padding to 0, same for margin, set it to 0. Now let's view this page in the browser, right click here and open this page using live server. Okay, now you can see the black page. Now let's make the browser and Visual Studio Code side by side so we can easily see the changes while writing code. Okay, let's create one more div inside our container for a form. So it's our form, and then inside it I'm going to add a heading. Type heading 1 and set the inner HTML to login. Okay, let's try this form class, form, and I want to set the background color to white. Now let's make it in center. So display flex of container and then justify content, set it to center. Same for align items, set it to center. Now let's set the width of form to 300 pixel, add some border radius of around 10 pixel, set the padding to 1 rem, and I want this login text in center, so let's target H1 and set the text align to center. Okay, after login heading, let's create one more div, and then inside this div, let's add a label for username. Just after this label, create an input tag. Perfect. Now let's set the class name of this div to subdiv, and I want to set the flex direction. So first set the display flex and then flex direction to column. Okay, now it's time to style the input box. So target input tag and then let's add some padding of around 8 pixel. Add some border radius of around 5 pixel and set the border to pixel solid black. Now let's increase the font size of our subdiv. So type font size and I am setting it to 18 pixel. Okay, let's add a placeholder to our input box. Enter username. Now just copy this subdiv and paste it down. Press Shift Alt plus down arrow to duplicate it. And this is for password. Okay, so let's add some margin to our subdiv. So I'm adding margin in y-axis of around 5 pixel and then 0 for x-axis. Let's increase it a bit more, 8 pixel. Okay, I think it's fine. Now the last thing is the login button. So let's add a button here and I'm naming it login. Now let's style this button. So type button, set the width to 100%. Let's add padding of around 8 pixel. Set the background color to blue and the color to white. Also, I want to make the font bold, so add font weight property and set it to bold. Let's add border radius of around 5 pixel. Okay, now our login form is ready. Now it's time to change the font family. So go to Google Fonts and here you will find lots of fonts. Pick a font of your choice. So I want to apply this font. I'm selecting this. Then copy this link tag and paste it in our head tag. Then copy this CSS property and I want to apply this to our entire page. So I am pasting it here. Now see here, we have successfully applied that font. Let's add some margin to our button. So I'm adding margin of around 8 pixel and then in x-axis I am setting it to 0. Our form is ready now. So in this today's video, we are going to explore about styling links in CSS. So without wasting any time, let's get started. Imagine a web page without links. It's like a book without chapters. Links connect us to different parts of the web, and styling them can be a touch of magic to your website. Today, we are going to explore various techniques to make your links stand out. So let's jump into Visual Studio Code. So here I have already prepared a basic web page with an anchor tag or link. Here we are going to use internal CSS. So let's add a style tag after head tag, style, and inside it we can write our CSS. So first let's target anchor tag. And inside curly braces, I am changing the color to red. Now let's view this in the browser. Right click here and open this page using live server. Okay, so see here, our link is displayed here. Now let's increase the font size. So I am increasing the font size to 2 rem. Okay, and also let's add some margin of around, I think it should be 80 pixel. Okay, now let's make the browser and Visual Studio Code side by side. So over here and make them side by side so we can easily see the changes while writing the code. Now if I want to remove this underline, so we have a property called text decoration and set it to none. So we don't want any decoration here. So see in the browser, the underline is removed. Now suppose a user has already visited a link and I want to style it differently after visiting the link. So in order to do that, we have a pseudo class called visited. So let's add it. First target the anchor tag, then a semicolon followed by the pseudo class visited, and after that curly braces, And don't worry about pseudo classes, I will make a separate video for this. So here I am setting the color property to green. Okay, now see here, if I visit this link and get back to our previous tab, so see here the color of our link is changed to green. It's because of visited pseudo class. We have specified the color green here. We can also add more styling. Try to add some more styling here. Let's see one more pseudo class. So if someone hover on this link, then I want to make it bold. So for that, we have a pseudo class called hover, and then inside curly braces, I'm setting the font weight to bold. Now if I hover on this link, so it will become bold. Also, let's change the color. So I'm setting the color to aqua. Okay, so see here, it's also changing the color. Now let's see the last pseudo class called active. So with the help of active, we can create an effect like clicking. So let's add active pseudo class here. And if someone clicks on the link, so I want to add border here. I want a border of 2 pixel solid black. Now let's see this in the browser. You can see if I click on this link, then it's adding border to this link. It's because of active pseudo class. We can also style this link like a button. So here I am adding border of 2 pixel solid black, and then let's add some padding of around 5 pixel. Also let's set the background color to anti-white. Okay, so it's a very basic video about styling links in CSS. When we create a web page, we often need to rotate or move an element. This is where the CSS transform property comes into play. With the CSS transform property, we can easily manipulate an element. In today's video, we will explore the transform property in CSS. So without wasting any time, let's jump right in. So here in Visual Studio Code, I have already prepared a web page with a box in the center. Let's write the CSS now. Inside the style tag, you will see a box class. Now inside it, I am adding transform property. Then I am using rotate method and setting its value to 30 degree. This will rotate the box by 30 degree. You can see in the browser. Okay, now if I add negative value here, then it will rotate it in opposite direction. Now if we want to rotate it only in the x-axis, so we can use the rotate x method instead. So let's try it. Here I am changing the method to rotate x and then setting its value to 60 degree. Now you can see this box is now rotated by 60 degree in the x-axis. Similarly, we have rotate y method for rotating in y-axis. So let's change it to rotate y and then it will get rotated 60 degree on y-axis. Okay, now there is one more method called rotate z, which is similar to the rotate method. However, this method rotates the box in a 2D dimension. So let's quickly see how it works. I will change the method to rotate z, and we can observe that the box rotates by 60 degrees in the z-axis when viewed in the browser. Okay, now let's take a look at the scale method. The scale method is used to adjust the size of our element, increasing or decreasing it. To see it in action, let's first comment on the previous property. Okay, next we will add the transform property and then set it to scale. Within the parentheses, we will set the value to 2, so this will increase the size of our box. And if we want to decrease the size, then set the value that is less than 1. For example, I am setting here 0.2. Additionally, we can also provide 2 separate values for scaling, such as 2 for the x-axis and then 3 for y-axis. But it will spoil the aspect ratio. Next, let's move to the translate method, which is used to move an element. to add it to our CSS, we need to comment on the above property. So let's comment it, asterisk symbol, then a slash, and after that, close it like this. Now let's add transform property again, and this time I am setting the method to translate. Here I am giving a value of 30 pixel to this method, and in the browser you will notice that our box has moved by 30 pixel from the left side. Now let's give another value of around 70 pixel to translate method, and you will notice in the browser that the box has moved by 70 pixel from the top. This is how translate works. Now it's time to look at the last method called skew. Let's start by commenting the above property. Okay, adding a new transform property, and then I'm setting it to skew, and inside the parentheses I will give it a value of 20 degrees. Similarly, we can also pass another value to the y-axis. Add a comma, then let's set it to 40 degree and see the changes in the browser. So first, our box is rotated by 20 degrees in the x-axis, and after that it's got rotated 40 degrees in y-axis. So there is more to learn about transform property, but I have covered the most commonly used methods. Imagine you are at a buffet and your plate is overflowing with delicious food. Now, what if your plate was too small to handle all that goodness? That's where the CSS overflow property steps in, helping you manage the overflow of content on your web page. Today we are going to talk about the CSS overflow property. So without wasting any time, let's get started. The overflow property accepts values like visible, hidden, scroll, and auto. By default, it is set to visible. Let's explore them one by one. So let's now see this property in action in Visual Studio Code. So here in Visual Studio Code, create a new HTML page named overflow.html. After that, I'm closing this tab. Now here, get a basic HTML syntax by typing doc keyword, and inside the body, I'm going to create a container dot container. By the way, it's a shortcut to give a class container, and inside this container, I'm going to create one more subcontainer, and then I'm going to create some child divs. So let's create child, and I want total 4 child divs. Okay, now let's write the CSS. So I am fast forwarding this video to save the time. So here I am back with some prepared CSS. I have created a main container, then inside it a sub container, and inside that sub container I have 4 child divs. Now let's explore overflow property. So focus here. In our sub container there is total 4 child divs. You will notice here these 2 divs are overflowing out of our sub container. So I want to wrap this inside our container. Let's see the overflow hidden property of CSS. So here inside our subcontainer, I am adding overflow and setting its value to hidden. So now you will notice here that part is now hidden. So this is how overflow hidden works. Now I want to make this subcontainer scrollable. Here we can set it to scroll. And now see in the browser, this subcontainer is now scrollable. But here 2 scroll bar is appearing. One is for x-axis and the second one is for y-axis. But we don't want the scroll in x-axis. So we can also specify scroll of one axis. So let's comment this property And now I'm adding overflow Y and setting it to scroll. So here you will see scroll bar only in Y axis. We can do the same for X axis like this. Okay, and now let's see the overflow auto. So I'm setting here overflow auto. You will see here this is also working like overflow scroll, but the difference is it will automatically make our element scrollable whenever required. So in CSS, sometimes we need to apply the styling only for the childs or siblings. So to tackle this issue, we can use CSS combinators. So there are a total of 4 types of CSS combinators: descendant selector, child selector, adjacent sibling selector, and the last one is general sibling selector. So let's explore them one by one in Visual Studio Code. Here in Visual Studio Code, I have already prepared a basic HTML page. Now inside body, let's create a div with an ID container. So type div, then hash, and then type the ID container. By the way, it's a shortcut to create a div with an ID. Now, inside this container, I am going to create 2 paragraphs. So let's create. This is paragraph 1, duplicated by pressing Shift Alt plus down arrow. This is paragraph 2, and after this, let's create another div, and inside it, let's add 2 more paragraphs. So, paragraph 3 and then paragraph 4. Now just after our container div, here let's add 2 more paragraphs. So this is paragraph 5, and then the last is paragraph 6. Perfect. Now let's view this in the browser. Right click here and open this page using live server. So here is our document. Over here and make the browser and Visual Studio Code side by side, so we can see the changes while writing the code. Now let's write the CSS. So inside style tag, I am targeting the container ID and then target the paragraph tag, and inside curly braces, I am setting the background color to red. Now, focus here. See in the browser, these 4 paragraphs got red background because we have applied the background color to red with the help of descendant combinator. So this space represents descendant combinator, and those paragraphs which is available inside our container got the background color red. So this is descendant combinator. Now let's add a greater than sign between our container ID and the paragraph. So here I am adding the greater than sign. So see in the browser, only 2 paragraphs got the background color red. So this is because of we have applied child combinator here. So this greater than sign represents child combinator. These 2 paragraphs are the direct child of our container, and the paragraph 3 and 4 is not the direct child of container. These 2 are the child of this div. Okay, now let's see the next combinator, which is adjacent sibling selector. So we need to replace the greater than with a plus sign. So this is adjacent sibling selector. So see here, paragraph 5 got background color, which is the next sibling of our container div. So adjacent sibling will select the next sibling of our targeted element. Now let's explore last CSS combinator, which is general sibling selector. Now change the plus to this. Now see in the browser, paragraph 5 and 6 got selected. because paragraph 5 and 6 are general sibling of container div. Styling elements on user interaction is very good user experience. In CSS, we can achieve this using pseudo classes. So in this today's video, we are going to cover pseudo classes and pseudo elements. So without wasting any time, let's get started. So we have pseudo classes or pseudo selectors like hover, active, focus, first child, last child, and nth child. There is also more pseudo classes, but these are the most used pseudo classes. And in this video, we are going to cover these pseudo classes. After that, we will see pseudo elements. So let's jump into Visual Studio Code. So here in Visual Studio Code, I have already prepared a HTML page with a heading, then a paragraph, and in the bottom, we have a unordered list. By the way, I am using live preview extension here. So go into extension tab and then search here live preview and then install this extension. After that, you will find an option of show preview. Click on this option and here you will be able to see this page. Let's write the CSS. So first we are going to see the hover pseudo class. So here I am targeting the h1. After that I'm typing the hover pseudo class and then inside curly braces I'm setting the color to blue. Okay, so see in the right side, when I hover on this heading, then it will change the color to blue. So this is happening because of the hover pseudo class. Okay, now let's see the next pseudo class. I'm commenting the above CSS because I want to give the source code to you. Okay, now let's target h1 again, and the next pseudo class is active, and then inside curly braces I'm setting the background color to red. So seeing the page, when I click on this heading, it's changing the background color. This is happening because of active pseudo class. If I long click here, so you can see it's changing the color when I am clicking on the heading. So this is how active pseudo class works. And we can use these pseudo classes with any element like button, links, div, or any other element. Now let's see the next pseudo class, first child. So to see this pseudo class, I am targeting the UL tag and then target the li, and after that here I am adding first child pseudo class, and after that let's set the color to green. So see in the browser, the color of our first list item changed to green because we have added here first child pseudo class. So what it will do, it will select the first li tag from our unordered list, and we need to specify which tag we want to target. We can't write it like this. We need to specify which tag we want to select. So here I am specifying select li from our unordered list, and we want the first child of our unordered list. Now let's move to the next pseudo class, which is last child. So it's exact the opposite of first child. So let's duplicate it, and here I am changing the first to last, and let's apply a different color to it. So I am setting the color to red. So you will notice here the last child of our unordered list got red color. Now let's move to the next pseudo class, which is nth child. Here I am adding unordered list. Here I am targeting unordered list, then li tag, and then nth child. And here I am adding 2. After that, inside curly braces, I am setting the background color to gray. Okay. So see in the page, the second list item got background color gray. So it's because we have specified the number of our element here. So if we want to select an element by its index, then we can use nth child pseudo class. Now focus here. If I add n here, then you'll notice in the browser, it will apply the CSS to every even list item. For example, 2, 4, 6, 8 and then 10. Now, if you want to start it by 1, then add a +1 here. And after that, it will only apply the styling to the odd list item. And you can change it to anything, like if you want to start it by 4, then change it to 4. It will start the cycle from 4 list item. And if we want to skip more list item, so change the value of 2 here. If I change it to 3, then it will skip 2 list items. See here, so this is called an plus b. So here this is called an plus b. Okay, so here a represents the number of cycles and n is the counter, and then the b, which is 4 here, it represents the offset, or you can say the starting point. So these are the some pseudo classes or pseudo selectors of CSS. So there is also more pseudo classes. You can explore it by yourself. I'll attach a link in the description. Explore more about pseudo classes over there. Now let's see pseudo elements. So let's start with before pseudo element. So here I am targeting h1, and after that I'm adding before pseudo element. By the way, we write pseudo element with 2 semicolons and pseudo classes with 1 semicolon. So it's a main difference between pseudo elements and pseudo classes. Now inside curly braces, I'm adding a content property and setting it to hello. And now let's change the color to red. Okay. So see in the browser, this hello is added by before pseudo element and we have applied a red color to it. So if we want to add some content before any element using CSS, so we can use before pseudo element, and I can write anything here. Like if I write here IMS coding, okay, and we can also set the padding and margin here. Okay, now let's see after pseudo element. So let's target h1 again, and then I'm adding after pseudo element, and inside curly braces I'm setting the content property to hashtag heading 1. Now let's add some margin of 8 pixel and give it a background color of green. So see here, after this heading, you will find this hashtag heading 1, which is added by after pseudo element. So this is how before and after pseudo element works, and we can use them for any of the HTML elements. Now let's move to the next pseudo element. So here I am targeting paragraph tag, and after that I'm adding pseudo element first letter, and let's change the font size to 1.5 rem, and let's add font weight property and set it to bold. Also I want to change the color to purple. So see in the page, the styling of the first letter of the paragraph is changed. It's because of first letter pseudo element. So it will select first letter of any element and then we can style it. Now let's see the next pseudo element, which is first line, and I'm adding a background color property and setting it to brown. Now you will notice here the background color of our first line of our paragraph is changed to brown. So this is because of first line pseudo element. And you can see here, if I change the size of our window, so it will automatically detect the first line and then it will apply the styling to that line. So I hope you understood today's video. You can also explore about pseudo element. I'll attach a link in the description, check out that. And if you want the source code, then please do check out in the description. Grid layout is useful for positioning elements in a table-like structure. In a bookshelf, for example, books can easily arranged using grid. This concept is also applied in CSS to position elements using grid layout. So in this today's video, we will explore CSS grid layout. So without wasting any time, let's get started. So here in Visual Studio Code, let's create a new HTML file named grid layout css.html. Now, get a basic HTML syntax using a doc keyword, and then inside body, I'm going to create a div with a class called container. After that, inside this div, let's create some child divs with a class called item, and let's create 6 divs here. Okay, now let's add the index inside the items. So this is 4, 5, and the last one is 6. Perfect. Now it's time to write the CSS. So here after head tag, I'm adding style tag, and inside it we can write our CSS. So first, let's target the container class. Now inside curly braces, set the display property to grid. So in our previous videos, we saw about flex. So like that, here we have grid layout. Now let's change the background color of container to blue, and let's set the width to 100 VW. Also, let's target item class, and I'm setting the width to 10 VW and the height, and adding the height of 10 VH. Let's change the background color to red. Now let's preview this. Right click here and click on show preview option. After that, in the right side, you will be able to see this page. Now here in container, I'm adding grid template columns, and then here we can specify how many columns we want. So let's say I want 3 columns. So the first column should be of 40 pixel, then the second column is around of 100 pixel, and the last column is of 150 pixel. So here we have 3 columns. Let's increase the 40 pixel to 100 pixel. Okay, perfect. Now here I want some gap between these rows and columns. So here I'm adding a property called gap and setting it to 10 pixel. So focus here. In the page, you can see the items is automatically arranged by our grid layout. We can also specify how many rows we want. So let's add grid template rows, and here I want 3 rows. So the first should be of 100 pixel, then let's add a second row, and let's set the last row. Okay, so here you can see we have total 3 rows here. Now let's increase the items. Okay, so see in this page, the next item is automatically added in our third row. So here we have total 3 rows and 3 columns. And we can also specify the row gap and column gap separately. So for example, let's remove this gap property from here, and now I want the column gap of around 50 pixel. and then the row gap of 100 pixel. So see here, we can also add the column gap and row gap separately. I have explained you properties like grid template columns, grid template rows, column gap, row gap, and etc. Now in this today's video, we will explore some more properties of CSS grid layout. So here in Visual Studio Code, you can see our previous code that we have written in our previous video. Now first, let's view this page. So right click here and click on Show Preview option. If you are not be able to see that option, then install Live Preview extension. This is the extension that we are using here. Okay, now let's come back here. So now let's explore grid row and grid column. So these two properties help us to change the position of elements in grid layout. Now let's see this in code. Here I am creating a new class called item 7 for our 7th item, and here I am adding grid row property and setting its value to 1/2. Now let's add this class into our item 7. Okay, and to see it more clearly, let's change the background color of our 7th element. So here I am changing the background color to green. Okay, now in the browser you can see the 7th item is moved to first index. It's because of grid row property. So we have specified here that we want to align our 7th item from first row to second row. So here 1 is the starting row and 2 is the ending row. Means item 7 will be placed at the position of row number 1 and 2. If I make it 3, then it will take the space from row number 1 to 3. So this is row number 1, then 2, and then 3. Okay, to see it more clearly, let's make the height to 100%. So we don't want to apply any cap here. Now you can see, and this is the first row, and here is the second row, the last, here is the third row. Okay, I think we should open it into browser. So there you will be able to understand it more clearly. So right click here and then click on Open with Live Server. Now here, right click here and then click on Inspect. Okay, so when I hover on this container, then you can see the grid lines more clearly. Here is the first row, then the second row, and the last, the third row. So we have specified row for our 7th item that we want to expand it from row number 1 to row number 3. So I hope you understood that. Now let's go back to Visual Studio Code and let's add the second property, that is grid column. And this property also accepts two values. So here I am setting the value to 3/4, and this is also same as grid row. Here 3 is the starting value of the column and the 4 is the ending value. Go back to browser and here you can see the item number 7 is placed at the last column, because we have specified that we want the starting column 3 and the ending column is 4. Okay, here we have only 3 columns, that's why it got placed at the end. Now if I change the value of 3 to 2 and go back to browser, now you can see the 7th item got placed at the position of column number 2 to 4, and here I also want to change the width to 100%. So it will remove the cap that we have added in our item class. Here we have specified the height and width properties. So in our item number 7, I am overriding that CSS property. Now you can see the position of our item number 7 is starting from column number 1 to 3. So here is the column number 1 and the last column is column number 3. That's why it's taking this much space. Okay. Now let's add some more properties. So in our container class, I want to add justify content property and I'm setting its value to center. So it will place all our items in center. And similar to this, we can also use align items property and let's make it center. Go back to browser. So it's working fine. We can also use justify content and align items property here. So that's it for today's video, and this is the most used properties of CSS grid layout. I think it's enough for you, but if you want to learn more about CSS grid layout, then I'll attach a link in the description. Check out that. Also, if you want the source code, then please do check out in the description. You might have heard of variables in programming languages, but did you know CSS has them too? So in CSS, variables are like containers for values that can reuse throughout your style sheet. So let's see an example. Let's say we have a website with a primary color theme of blue. Instead of repeatedly typing the color code throughout our style sheet, we can define a variable like so. Now, whenever we want to use that blue, we just reference to our variable. So let's see it practically in Visual Studio Code. Okay, so here in Visual Studio Code, I'm going to create a new file named css underscore variables.html. Now let's get a basic HTML syntax by typing out keyword. Perfect. So inside our body, let's create a div with a class called container, and after head tag, let's add a style tag to write CSS. Okay. Now let's style our container class. So here I am targeting container class, and let's set the height to 20 VH and same for width. I'm setting it to 20 VW. Okay. Now I'm giving background color of red. Now let's view this. So right click here and click on show preview option. Okay, in the right side you can see a page, and here you will be able to see this container. Now let's create a global CSS variable. So to create a global CSS variable, first type colon and then type root. So this is the root selector. So it will select our document, means page, and then inside it type 2 dashes, and after that type the name of variable. So here I am creating a variable called color, and then after a column I am setting it to blue. Okay, and to use this variable in our container class, we need to use a function here called var. So we can use the variables using this function, and then so you can see it's giving us a suggestion. Click on it. Okay, so now we have successfully applied blue color to our container class using the color global variable. Okay, and we can also add more variables here. So if I want to create a variable for height, so let's set the height to 50 VH, and let's use this variable inside our container. So I'm changing the height to our variable. So Inside var function, I'm adding height variable. Okay, so now you can see the height is applied here. So that's how global variables works. We can also create local variables. Means local variables will only works inside our container class. Okay, if I type here dash dash color and then set it to green. Okay, so what it will do, it will override our global color variable. So we can also define variable inside a class, or we can directly define variables inside the root selector. So it depends on our use case. Okay, so mostly we use CSS variables to make a consistency. Variables ensure consistency in your design. If we have a fixed color theme of our website, then we can define them inside variables. And after that, we can use them throughout our style sheet. We can define a specific color for buttons and so on. It's all depends on you. How can you use them? Today we are going to add some life to our web pages with CSS animations. Now animations might sound fancy, but they are simpler than you think. CSS animations allow us to add movement and interactivity to elements on our web pages without needing any fancy JavaScript. With just a few lines of CSS, we can make elements fade in, slide across the screen, or even dance around like nobody's watching. We can create any animations of our choice. So let's see it practically in Visual Studio Code. You can see here I have already prepared a HTML page with a div in the center. Now, so here in the style tag, I am going to create a new animation of jumping. So let's first type @ symbol and then type keyframes. Okay, now here you can see the identifier. So after the keyframes, type the name of the animation. So here I am setting the name of the animation jump. Now think it as a video. We are going to create a video. So in the starting, I'm adding a 0% and then here we can use any CSS property. So here I am adding margin bottom and then setting it to 0. Then after that, let's copy it and then paste it down once again. Okay, now I'm changing the 0% to 50% and changing the value of margin bottom to 80 pixel. Now here I am changing the 0% to 100% and again I am setting the margin bottom to 0. This is like a video. So here is the starting part of our animation. Then this is the middle of the animation and here is the ending of the animation. It will create a jumping animation. At the start, the margin bottom is 0. Then in the middle of the animation, it will change the margin bottom to 80 pixel and then at the end, it will set the margin bottom again to 0. So it will create a jumping animation. Now let's apply this animation to our box class. So here in box class, I'm adding animation name and setting it to jump. After that, let's add animation duration and I'm setting it to 1 second. Then adding animation timing function, I'm setting it to ease. Then animation iteration count. So here we can specify how many times we want to run the animation. I am setting it to infinite. I don't want to stop the animation. Okay, so these are the most common properties of animation. You can see in the web page, the animation is applied and the box is jumping. We can also use all these properties in a single property called animation. And then first let's comment the above properties. Okay, now let's add the animation property again, and then here we need to specify the name of our animation. So here I am setting it to jump, then the duration of our animation. So let's set the duration to 1 second. After that, the timing function. So I'm setting the timing function to ease in. So here we have lots of timing function. Timing function means the behavior of our animation. So here I'm setting it to ease. Then the delay. So I don't want any delay between the animation. Iteration count. So I'm setting it to infinite. Then the direction. So I don't want any direction here. We can specify here the direction of our animation. For example, I can set it here reverse. So reverse is the direction. So our animation will, so it will apply a reversed animation of jump. The animation will goes from 100% to 0. Now the fill modes, I'm skipping the fill mode. So here you can see the animation is applied, and if you want to control the speed of our animation, then you can change the speed of our animation from here. So I am changing the duration of this animation to 0.5 second. Now the animation is running faster, and if I make it 5 second, then our animation slows down. So this is how animation works in CSS. While interacting with elements on a web page, we all love smoothness. And we can do this using CSS transition property. Today in this video, we are going to explore CSS transition property. So first, let's see an example. So here, when hovering on this box, then it's changing its size, but it's not giving us smooth user experience. Now, let's apply the transition property, and then you can see it's smoothly increasing its size after hovering on it. So that's the beauty of CSS transition property. Now let's see it practically in Visual Studio Code. So here we already have a basic HTML page with a box in the center, and you can see its live preview in the right side. So when I hover on this box, see, it's changing its size, but it's not smooth. So in the box class, I'm adding transition property, and then here we need to give him some values. So the first value is the property name, means on which property we want to apply the transition. So here I am adding scale property. I want to apply the transition on scale property. After that, type the duration, means how much we longed that, means how long we want the transition. So I am setting the duration to 0.5 second, and then the last value is the timing function. So here I am setting the timing function to is in. Now let's test it. So see here, when I hover on this box, so it's increasing the size smoothly. It's because of the transition property. Now, what if I want to apply the transition on more than one property? For example, let's add one more property on hover. So I am adding a background color property and then changing the color to red. Okay, now you can see we have total 2 properties on hover. Now here I also want to apply the transition on background color property. So here in transition property, just replace the scale to all. Means we want to apply the transition to all properties. Now you can see we have successfully applied the transition on our both properties, scale and background color. In CSS, specificity decides which styles are applied to an element when there are conflicting rules. So today, we are going to understand CSS specificity. So without wasting any time, let's get started. Let's say we have multiple CSS rules targeting the same element. How does the browser decide which style to apply first? Well, CSS specificity follows a simple hierarchy. Inline styles have the highest specificity, followed by IDs, classes, and elements. For example, an inline style like style equals to color blue will override any external or internal styles. To calculate specificity, we assign values to different selectors, 1 for IDs, 2 for classes, and 3 for elements. So let's see this practically in Visual Studio Code. Here you can see we have an HTML page with a box in the center. Right now you see it is blue in color. First, I will remove this background color. Now let's start with the element CSS selector. So here I am targeting the div tag, and then inside it let's add the background color property and set it to red. Now you will notice that the color of all divs is changed to red. So this is the element selector that has the lowest specificity. Now let's override this background color property using class CSS selector, which is one step upper of the element CSS selector in the hierarchy. So in our box class, I'm adding background color property and then setting it to blue. Now in the right side, you can see the color of the box has changed to blue. The box styles overrode the above CSS. Now let's move up in the hierarchy, and it's time to see the ID selectors, which have the higher specificity in front of these two selectors. So let's give this box a ID called box, and then let's target this box ID, and inside curly braces I'm adding background color property and setting the color to yellow. Perfect. Now you can see the changes on the page. The background color of this box is yellow. The CSS ID selector overrode the background color property. Now let's see the inline styles, which has the highest specificity. So in the HTML, I am adding style attribute. Style, and then changing the background color to orange. Okay, now focus here. The color of this box is changed to orange because inline style has the highest specificity. So it's overrode all the above background color property. Understanding specificity helps us write cleaner and more maintainable CSS code. It's essential to use specific selectors wisely. And there you have it. I hope you found this video helpful. If you want the source code, then please do check out in the description. Responsive web design ensures that our website look great and work well on any device, whether it's a smartphone, tablet, or a desktop. So in today's video, we are going to learn about responsive web design using media queries. So without wasting any time, let's get started. First, let's see an example of responsive design. So here I have opened Flipkart website. Now let's inspect here. Right click and then click on inspect. Switch the device to mobile. And here you can see I have selected iPhone 12 Pro, and now you can see the Flipkart's website looks good on mobile phone, which means this website is responsive. Now let's switch the device again, and here when I am changing the size, so it will automatically adjusting the layout. It's because of responsive design. Now let's understand media queries in Visual Studio Code. So here I have opened Visual Studio Code. Let's start by creating a new file named media queries.html. Perfect. Let's zoom it and let's get a basic HTML syntax using a doc keyword. So type doc and then hit enter. Now here inside body, I am going to create a parent container and I am adding a class container. Inside it, let's create some more child divs. So here I want to create 4 child divs. Perfect. Now let's start styling it. So after head tag, I'm adding style tag, and then first let's view this. So right click here and then click on show preview option. Now in the right side you can see this page. So let's start styling it. First I'm targeting the container class. Let's set the width to 100 VW, then the height 100 VH. After that, setting the background color to red. Now let's remove the extra space. So here I'm adding a asterisk symbol and inside it setting the margin, then the padding to 0. Okay, now let's style the child class. So I'm targeting child class and then inside it let's set the width to 10 VW. Also I'm setting the height to 10 VH, adding a background color of green, and let's add some margin of around 20 pixels. Now I'm making the display flex of our container. Okay, now let's create a media query. So first let's start by typing add symbol and then type media only screen, and I'm adding a condition here. So inside parenthesis adding max width and setting it to 600 pixel. After that inside curly braces, after that let's target the container class and then inside it setting the background color to blue. Okay, let's change the max width to 400 pixel. Now you can see when I decrease the size of this page, it's changing the background color to blue. So when it's reached to 400 pixel, then it will automatically changes its color to blue. It's because of this media query that we have added here. We can also add more styles here. Let's add background color here. And I want to make the background color of our child div to black. So when I decrease the size of this page, so it's applying the style according to the size of our page. So here, like this media query, we can define multiple styles for different devices. Now let's change the condition to orientation. So I'm adding orientation and then setting it to landscape. So now let's increase the size of our page. So you can see, so when it becomes landscape, then it will automatically changes the style. Now let's change it to portrait, and when I decrease the size, so it's changing the style. So that's how media queries works. So today we are going to learn how to optimize CSS performance with minification and concatenation. Even if your site loads quickly now, these techniques are essential for larger projects. So let's dive in. You can see here is a basic HTML page. See 2 files here. One is style.css and the second file is style2.css. Now first, let's see concatenation. So to optimize this, we use concatenation, which means combining all these CSS files into one file. So let's see it. So here, from this style2.css file, I'm copying this CSS and then let's paste it in our style.css file. Okay, Now let's go back to our HTML page, and from here I am deattaching the style2.css. So let's remove this link tag, and now we have only one CSS file, which is style.css. Although the difference might not be obvious in our small example, in larger projects this can significantly improve performance. So in our case, this HTML page is very small. That's why we cannot see any difference. So this is the example of CSS concatenation. Now let's talk about the next method, which is minification. Minification removes unnecessary characters like spaces and comments from our CSS, making the file smaller and faster to download. So let's see it. So here is our style.css file. Before the minification, notice all the spaces and comments. So to minify this file, we can use an online tool like cssminifier.com. So I'll copy the entire content of this file and then go to CSS Minifier. I'll attach a link of this website in the description. Now let's paste the code here and then click on Minify. At the bottom, you can see the minified version of this CSS. Just copy this CSS and then go back to our style.css file, then delete this entire code and paste it here. So here is the minified version of our style.css file. Now let's go back to our index.html file, and if I view this page, so you can see the CSS styling is still working, even though the load time improvement is not visible here. Minification is crucial for reducing file size and improving load times in larger projects. So by concatenating and minifying your CSS, you can significantly improve your web page's performance, especially in larger projects. While developing cool websites, you will often face CSS bugs. And if you are not familiar with debugging tools and techniques, then it is hard to resolve the bugs. So in today's video, we are going to explore debugging tools and techniques to make our coding life much easier. So first, let's start with browser developer tools. Right now, I am using Chrome. So to open developer tools, right click here and then scroll down and click on inspect. After that, you will find this sidebar of developer tools. After seeing this, maybe you will get confused because it's too complex, but don't worry, we are only going to learn about some of the tools that are in the scope of this course. So here you can see the first tab is elements. Here in this tab, you can see your entire HTML code. So here I am expanding the container, and when you hover over an element, then it will highlight that particular element on the page. You can see when I hover on this form, then it's getting highlighted on the page. From here, you can also edit the HTML. Just need to double click on where you want to edit. So see here, if I want to change this login to IMS, like this, you can edit the HTML only for this session. It will not getting saved in our HTML file. In the right side, you will find a new tab of styles. This tab is responsible for your CSS styling. You need to first select an element from the elements tab. So here I have selected the H1, and then here in this style tab, you can see the CSS of this element. So the CSS of selected element is margin bottom 10 pixel and text align center. Also from here, you can modify the CSS live and see the changes instantly. So let's add a property. I'm adding background color property and changing the color to green. So on the web page, you can see the changes instantly. Now let's see the box model. So when I hover over an element, then you will notice that particular element is getting highlighted. So from here, you can see the margin, border, padding and content of that particular element. So we can use it to identify spacing issues. For example, see this form div. Here you can see the margin and padding of this div, which is highlighted by light green and light yellow color. If I want to change the margin and padding to see how it looks before doing the changes in the code, then I can simply do that from the style tab. So let's change the margin. So I'm changing the margin of this div to 40 pixel, and you can see the margin of this box is increased now. The next thing is the console tab. Console tab is very useful for debugging. Here you can see the errors and issues. So let's see an example. So here in our HTML code, I am knowingly typing the wrong name of our CSS file. So instead of style, I am typing styles. You can see in the file section, we don't have any file named styles. Let's go back to the browser, and here in the console tab, you can see the error saying refuse to apply the style from this file. So from here, you can see the path of the file and then you can easily debug it. So that's it for today's video. I hope you found this video helpful. Apply these methods and techniques to write more readable, faster and bug-free CSS code. If you want the source code, then please do check out in the description. Writing our own CSS from scratch is very time consuming, especially if you have a deadline to submit the project. So here, CSS frameworks came into the picture. They help us to write the CSS very easily in less time. So in today's video, we are going to explore one of the most popular CSS framework called Bootstrap. So without wasting any time, let's get started. First, let's see why use a CSS framework. Here are a few reasons. Speed. CSS frameworks can save a lot of time. Second point is consistency. They help maintain a consistent look across your web pages. Third point is responsiveness. Most frameworks are designed to be responsive, which means your site will look good on all screen sizes. The last point is cross-browser compatibility. They help ensure your site works well in different web browsers. Now, let's move to Bootstrap. Bootstrap is a very popular CSS framework which is developed by Twitter for developers and designers to build responsive websites easily and quickly. So let's see it practically in Visual Studio Code. So here in Visual Studio Code, let's start by creating a new file named bootstrap.html. I'm closing other files. Now let's get a basic HTML syntax by typing a dog keyword. Now let's go to the official website of Bootstrap. So here I'm searching for Bootstrap and then click on the first result. Now let's go to docs, and you can see here in quick start section, so you will find this HTML. Copy this second HTML, go back to our HTML page and paste it here. So now in our HTML page, we have successfully integrated Bootstrap. You can see here is the CSS and JS. So let's view this page. Right click here and click on show preview. So in the right side, you can see the live preview of this page. Now go back to the website, and in the components section, you will find lots of components. For example, let's go to alerts. So here you will find lots of alerts, and we can use these components in our HTML page. Just need to copy the code and then paste it in our HTML page. So here I am replacing the h1 tag with this alert component. So in our page, you can see the alert. So here in this website, you will find lots of components. Let's see buttons. So here you can see these are the buttons. So let's copy the primary button and I'm pasting it after the other. So in our HTML page, you can see the button here. And if we want to add some margin and padding, then in the class, I can write m-4. So here m stands for margin and then I want the margin of 4. If you want to see the actual CSS of this M4, then you can see it here. So search margin and here you will find the actual CSS of margin and padding. Now let's get a navbar. So here is the navbar. I am copying this code and then pasting it at the top of our body. So we have successfully integrated a navbar in our HTML page. So this navbar is fully responsive and let's change the name to MS Coding. And we can also write custom CSS using Bootstrap. So this is just an introductory video. While coding a large website, it is hard to copy and paste the same style throughout our entire code. Instead, we can store them in one place and call them wherever we want to use that style. That's where CSS variables come in. In today's video, we are going to explore CSS variables. So without wasting any time, let's get started. First, let's understand the problem. Suppose I have two colors on my website, a primary color and a secondary color. Now, if I want to use them somewhere, I need to copy and paste the hex code. But if we save this hex code in a variable and name it primary and secondary color, then we can use the color using that variable name. So let's see it practically in Visual Studio Code. How can we store values into variables using CSS variables? First, let's create a new file named CSS variables.html. After that, get a basic HTML syntax using a doc keyword. Now, inside the body, I am going to add some headings. So first, heading 1, then heading 2, heading 3. Now let's preview it. Right click here and then click on show preview option. If this option is not available in your Visual Studio Code, then you need to install live preview extension. After that, let's add a style tag just after the head tag. So here I am adding a style tag. We can also do the same thing in an external CSS file, but I am writing it here. So to create variables, first type the root selector. So I am typing the root selector. Then inside curly braces, we can declare the variables. Let's declare a variable. Start with double hyphen followed by the variable name. Primary color. So I have declared a variable named primary color. Now let's declare the secondary color. Double hyphen secondary color. So here we have two variables. Now let's use them. First, I am targeting the h1 and then inside the curly braces, I am adding background color property. Now to use variables, we need to use the var function. So type var and then inside parentheses, type the name of the variable as it is. So here I am typing primary color. Now on the right side, you can see that we have applied the primary color to h1. So that's how CSS variables work. But there are two types of variables, global and local. I've shown you the example of global variable. Now let's see a local variable. So here in our h1, I am going to declare a new variable called font size and then give it a value. So I'm giving a value of 20 pixel. After that, let's add the font size property and I am passing this variable to it. So var then font size. So you can see the changes in our page. The font of heading 1 is decreased. So this variable is local variable. The difference is that global variables can be accessed throughout our entire code, while local variables can be used only inside the selector where they are declared. Also one more thing, here we saw the example of colors, but we can set any value to these variables. So that's how CSS variables work. I hope you found this video helpful. If you want the source code, then please do check out in the description. This video is a part of our HTML and CSS beginners guide course, so please do check out our playlist. Like this video, share it with your friends. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, click the subscribe button and also press the bell icon. I'll see you in the next video. Happy coding everyone.